Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear children, today I'll tell you another beautiful story from the life of Prophet Yusuf AS. The story of how Allah tested him in prison and how he later became one of the most powerful men in Egypt. In our previous story, we learned that Prophet Yusuf, though completely innocent, was thrown into prison because of the false accusations made against him. But even in prison, Allah was with him, guiding him, protecting him, and preparing him for something great. During his time there, Allah blessed Yusuf AS with a special gift, the ability to interpret dreams. He was kind and gentle and wise, and all the prisoners respected and loved him deeply. One day, 2 new men were brought into the prison. One of them was the king's cupbearer, the one who served drinks to the pharaoh. The other was the king's baker, who prepared his food. That night, both of them saw strange dreams. When they woke up, they were very worried because they didn't understand what their dreams meant. The next morning, they went to Prophet Yusuf AS and said, "O Yusuf, you are a righteous man, and we know Allah has blessed you with wisdom. Please tell us the meaning of our dreams." Prophet Yusuf AS smiled kindly and said, "Before I tell you, remember, only Allah is the true knower of all unseen things. Whatever knowledge I have is from him." The baker spoke first. He said, "In my dream, I was carrying a basket of bread on my head, and birds were eating from it." Yusuf AS closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Then he said gently, "My brother, the meaning of your dream is that you will be punished for a crime you did, and you will be hanged. The birds will eat from your head. That is what your dream means." The baker became very sad. Then the cupbearer said, "I saw that I was squeezing grapes into wine and serving it to the king." Prophet Yusuf AS said, "You will be freed soon and will return to your position in the palace. You will once again serve wine to the king." Both men were amazed at how clearly he explained their dreams. Then Prophet Yusuf AS said to the cupbearer, "When you return to the king, please remember me and tell him that there is an innocent man in prison who was wrongfully accused." The cupbearer promised, "I'll surely tell the king about you." But when he was released, Shaitan made him forget his promise, and Prophet Yusuf AS remained in prison for a few more years. Yet, Yusuf AS remained patient and continued to worship Allah sincerely. Several years later, one night, the king of Egypt had a very strange and frightening dream. He saw himself standing near the river Nile. In his dream, 7 fat cows came out of the river, followed by 7 thin cows. The thin cows suddenly attacked and began eating the fat cows. Then he saw 7 green ears of corn growing on the banks, and beside them 7 dry ones that swallowed up the green ones. The king woke up, trembling and confused. What could this dream mean? He wondered. He called all his wise men, scholars, and priests the next morning and said, "Tell me the meaning of my dream, if you are truly wise." The scholars looked at each other in silence. One of them said, "Your Majesty, perhaps you had too much food last night." Another said, "Maybe it's just a meaningless dream." But none of them could explain it properly. The king grew more and more frustrated. That's when the cupbearer, who had once been in prison with Yusuf AS, suddenly remembered him. He said, "Your Majesty, there was a young man in prison who could interpret dreams perfectly. Every word he said came true. His name is Yusuf." The king immediately said, "Go, bring this man to me." The cupbearer rushed to the prison and met Prophet Yusuf AS again after many years. He told him about the king's dream and said, "The king has seen 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 thin cows, and 7 green ears of corn, followed by 7 dry ones. Can you interpret this for us?" Prophet Yusuf AS prayed to Allah and then explained, "O my brother, Egypt will have 7 years of great harvest. The land will produce plenty of food and crops. After that, there will come 7 years of famine, when no crops will grow, and people will suffer from hunger. So during the good years, gather and store food carefully, so you can survive the difficult years that will come after." The cupbearer hurried back to the king and told him everything. The king was amazed and said, This man is wise and blessed by God. Bring him to me at once." When the king's guards came to release him, Yusuf AS said calmly, "I will not leave this prison until my innocence is proven." Asked the women who once accused me what really happened. The king was impressed by his honesty and ordered an investigation. The chief minister's wife, Zuleika, and the women who attended her banquet were brought to court. The king asked them, "What is the truth about Yusuf? Did he really try to harm you?" All the women lowered their heads and said, "By Allah, he is innocent. He did nothing wrong. He is as pure as an angel." Then Zuleika herself spoke. "It was I who was at fault. He refused me, and I wronged him. Truly, Yusuf is among the righteous." At last, Yusuf AS innocence was proven before everyone. The king saved. "Now bring Yusuf to me with honor and respect." When Prophet Yusuf AS entered the palace, the king was astonished by his calmness, wisdom, and beauty. He said, "You are truly a man of knowledge and honesty. I want you to help me lead this country, Prophet." Yusuf AS replied humbly, "Appoint me in charge of the storehouses of the land. I will guard them with wisdom and justice." The king agreed, and from that day on, Prophet Yusuf AS became the treasurer of Egypt, responsible for managing the food supplies for the entire kingdom. Just as he had said, the first 7 years brought abundant crops. Prophet Yusuf AS worked tirelessly to store the extra grain safely in huge storehouses. He made sure nothing went to waste. Then, the 7 years of famine began. The rains stopped, and the fields dried up. People across Egypt and neighboring lands began to suffer. But thanks to Yusuf AS's planning, Egypt had enough food stored to help everyone. People came from all over the region to buy grain from him. And soon, by Allah's plan, his brothers, the same brothers who had once thrown him into the well, came to Egypt seeking food. But that is a story for another day. ... Closing parentheses. When we look at this part of the story, we see how Allah's plan always brings goodness in the end. Prophet Yusuf AS was thrown into a well, sold as a slave, and imprisoned unjustly. Yet Allah raised him to honor and power, from prison to palace, from pain to peace. This is the power of patience, faith, and trust in Allah. Yusuf AS once said, "Indeed, my Lord is most subtle in what he wills. Surely he is the all-knowing, the all-wise." Surah Yusuf 12-100. So, whenever life gets hard, remember this story. Be patient, stay truthful, and keep your trust in Allah, because He knows what we do not know. Father, so, my dear children, what did you learn from today's story? Child, that Allah's plan is always perfect, even when we don't understand it. Father, yes, and that patience and honesty always lead to success. Inshallah, next time, we'll continue with what happened when Prophet Yusuf AS met his brothers again. Child, I can't wait to hear it, Baba. Father, all right, that's all for today. May Allah bless you with wisdom and patience like Prophet Yusuf AS. Assalamu alaikum. Child. Wa alaikum assalam.